Hi again. I am sitting in my closet with a blanket wrapped around me because it's a little chilly today. So, ignore that. Um, I wanted to talk about something that's pretty relevant in motherhood, probably for most of us or many of us. Um, I do want to send out a bit of a warning, trigger warning. This is about mental health, and it's also it mentions pregnancy loss. So just be aware of that. So I wanted to talk about a lot of postpartum kind of issues that many women deal with, that I definitely did as well. Um, I guess I'll start in the beginning with my first. Isla was um, born wonderfully healthy and very non-traumatic. It was a great experience for me. I really actually quite enjoyed it. I would say that postpartum with her, I considered myself having the baby blues a lot. And that's what people would tell me. Oh, it's just hormonal shifts and whatnot. And I was emotional. And sometimes at night, I had a really hard time being alone. I just felt very alone. But my husband was supportive. It wasn't his fault. It was just those were my emotions. And those were the things that I was going through. And everyone knows being a first time mom is hard in general. It's all new. There's no real guide. So, for the most part, I think I did okay. Although I did have some emotions, not just some, a lot, but I was okay. Then came Lane. He was about 16 months later. This is when things kind of really started for me, I would say. He was born, and at the time I thought it was so cool because I found all these apps, one in particular that was geared towards, keeping track of nursing, which side, how long, keeping track of naps, and keeping track of naps over time to see if they're getting enough sleep, and just all those cool, fun things, right? So I got really into that. And it was helpful until it wasn't. I noticed myself starting to get very obsessive about it. I would track nursing, and if he unlatched, I would stop the clock. And if he relatched, I'd start the clock and stop the clock and start the clock. And I got very, very, very critical about if I had the right amount of time and was doing it right. Sleeping was an issue. The naps, I'd put him down for a nap, and then I would just ruminate on, well, did he fall asleep right away? Did it take him 2 minutes? I can't tell on the monitor. Is he sleeping yet? I don't know. How do I know if he's asleep, or did he spend 10 minutes awake? I don't know what to put in the app, because if I don't put in the right amount of minutes, it might not total up the right amount of minutes at the end of it, or at the end of the day. And then I would have panic attacks, and just get so anxious if things didn't work out the way I wanted. So I started having a lot of kind of postpartum, like OCD, anxiety. I don't consider myself, I didn't at the time. I didn't necessarily think postpartum depression was my issue, although I feel like they're all pretty linked together. But I did, after one big anxiety attack, and I was at my parents' house with all of my family, and things weren't going well, and I just took the baby and I left the house. I went home by myself. I just couldn't handle being around everyone, and I was having a really difficult time, and I finally just was like, this is not okay. So I was able to recognize that It took a little bit, but I did recognize it and talked with my OB, and that's where my medication journey began. It helped. I was doing better. I was feeling better. I was happy with how things were going. Unfortunately, I let somebody kind of influence me. It wasn't a doctor, it wasn't my family. I just let somebody influence me into thinking that I didn't need medication and I didn't need to be on it, long term. As soon as you were kind of out of the infant stage or whatever, you don't need it anymore. So I weaned myself off probably around 6 months of being on it, thinking, okay, I don't need it anymore. So at that point I had a baby and a toddler, and I got pregnant again. So the second and third between the two were about 21 months. So three of my kids were very young, or I was pregnant with two very young children, and I remember starting to circle the drain again while I was pregnant with my third. I knew I wasn't feeling okay. I knew it wasn't good, but I also had guilt about being on medication while I was pregnant. So I held off. And then finally my OB talked with her, and she convinced me it's going to be okay. If that's what I need, if medication is what I need, then that's what I was going to do. So I got on the medication. I even had to go up in my dose. But then I felt like I could handle things again. I got through that pregnancy and I stayed on my medication, and postpartum went okay. I didn't have to adjust anything. I just stayed where I was with that, and I did okay. So I'm home with 3 very young kids. But that was what we wanted. That's what we had planned for, I guess. So we decided to go for the 4th. I was always the kind of mom that never knew or never thought she'd have that feeling of being done. And I know some women just get that strong feeling of, nope, I'm done. I'm not doing it again. That's it. And for me, I just felt like there were just more little people that needed to meet me. I needed to meet. I just felt like I just wasn't ready to be done. And I loved being pregnant. I loved the postpartum stage, aside from when I wasn't doing well. But if I was on the right medication, if I was in the right frame of mind, the baby stage was just so good for my soul. So anyhow, we tried for a 4th. Here's where it kind of gets a little, just warning. I had 5 pregnancy losses in a matter of 12 months. I don't know why. I could get pregnant very easily, but I just couldn't carry it. And 3 of them were pretty early on. 2 of them were late first trimester, early second trimester. And it really did a toll on my mental health. Somehow we ended up pregnant and I remember having an anxiety attack sitting in the OB's office waiting it was probably 8-9 weeks to have the ultrasound to check for heart rate. and see if it's a viable pregnancy. And I sat there just sobbing and having a panic attack about if this one's gone, we're done. I'm not doing this again. I can't do this anymore. This is it. It's either going to be a baby or we're done with 3. And surprisingly enough, baby's heart rate looked good, and it stayed well through. I mean, we carried a term, and here was Lucas. The best pregnancy or postpartum for me. I think at that point we had almost a 3-year age gap between the 3rd and the 4th, so that my babies weren't quite babies anymore, and I just had one little love for me to just call my own. I loved every bit of postpartum with Lucas. So I was in a good headspace at that time. Like I said before, I have always been the type of person that I was never going to be done having kids. Like my husband was going to have to tell me, like, nope, I think we're done, because I could have kept having more and more babies. But we talked about it after Lucas, after our 4th, and decided that it was probably best for our family to call it done. I kind of had to grieve that, because I still had that feeling of wanting more, but understanding like this is what's best for our family. So it was like a grieving process, right? And so then I started focusing on the good things, because there's, good things about being done as well. Once all the kids are in school, like how much more time we have in diapers, just all that, the little things, I start focusing on those positive things, and it was going to be fine. So I was always a really good natural family planner. I know my body very well. Like I said, it was easy to get pregnant. And so I figured it was easy to not get pregnant. So my body hadn't quite regulated itself after being done breastfeeding my 4th. And I ended up pregnant. And I had always said, when we decided to be done, I'd always said, like, joked around with people, like, well, if we have an oops, I'm not going to cry about it, Well, I'm not going to call him an oops, but I ended up pregnant 21 months. There was a 21-month gap between 4 and 5. And to say I was surprised is an understatement. I think I laughed until I cried. I wasn't sad about it. It was just like, are you kidding? Of course this would happen. And everyone laughed with me. Like, of course it would happen to Terry. Like, yep, have another one. So we were pregnant really early on. Just, oh my gosh, can't believe it. But in the back of my mind, I just keep thinking to myself, well, I'm going to lose it. I lost 5 before Lucas. Like, there's no way I'm going to keep this baby like this. Like, it's not going to stay viable. And I think that was just my coping mechanism, or like, I was just trying to prepare myself in case I did lose it. So then we go to our first appointment, and I just remember thinking, it's not going to have a heartbeat. There's just no way. But it did. And I was like, okay, well, I guess here we go. And each appointment, I kept going back, for whatever testing or whatever appointment it was. And I kept convincing myself, it's not going to have a heartbeat. Like, I know it's not going to have a heartbeat. Like, there's just no way. And each time it did. And I was like, oh, okay. We're still going. So this is where it starts to get kind of ugly again. I don't know if I realized in my head that all these statements of you're gonna lose it, you're gonna lose it, I don't know if I knew what feelings were really behind that, but we got to our anatomy scan, around 20 weeks, right? And I'm sitting in the office waiting to go back for my anatomy scan, and I just keep thinking, I bet there's no heart rate. There's no heart rate. And we get back, and I'm like on the verge before during this ultrasound, I'm like on the verge of an anxiety attack. And she starts doing it, and she's going through, and everything's looking totally normal. And I just started sobbing. I was crying, and the thought that was going through my head was, I hope that this baby maybe doesn't have a brain and they'll allow me to abort it. Talk about a gross feeling to go through your head while you're watching your little baby move around inside you. I don't even know what I just was crying. I'm not sure what feelings I was really feeling, whether it was relief that baby was fine, or guilt and shame and hating myself for feeling that way or having those thoughts. It wasn't good. The nurse that did the ultrasound sent me back to my room to see the physician, and the nurse walked in, and I was sobbing and telling her what had been going through my head. And she got the doctor, and the doctor came in, and I told her what was going on. And just realizing how I don't think leading up to that, I don't think I realized I was feeling a certain way about not wanting to have a baby, because that was a completely foreign feeling for me. Excuse me. So I am explaining to the OB about how I've been feeling and what's going through my head. And she knows that I'm on medication, but she clearly recognizes I need more than what she's able to provide. She was, good enough to say, I don't feel comfortable messing with your medications. I want you to go somewhere that's what they do. So they gave me some information about where to go, and I left the OB and went straight to a psychiatric urgent care to be seen. And that was a frightening experience for me. And frightening in a way, I mean, that I should be celebrating the health of my baby. Yet here I was in this place of just fear and guilt and shame and just darkness. But they literally helped save me. It was the first time I've ever seen a psychiatrist. Prior to that, all of my needs were met through my OB. And, looking back now, knowing what I know now, I wish I could have told myself then that I don't want a jack of all trades. I'd rather have the ace of a specific thing. So I should have gone to a psychiatrist the moment I was put on any kind of meds for the anxiety, the depression. So I would say that I recommend going to a psychiatrist who knows all there is to know about that kind of stuff. So I saw a counselor there who kind of talked about some behaviors, some coping skills for me. They completely changed my medication. Completely switched it up. And it was kind of scary, especially being pregnant, and just having to deal with medications like this and just all of the unknown. But if I didn't do something then, I don't know what would have happened. I started seeing a therapist shortly after that. It was helpful. I don't think we clicked super well, so it was fine, but I think more than anything, after 2-3 weeks, I felt like a different person. The medication did its job. I think I've said this before, but medication really seems to work for me when I find what works. So things just kind of turned around from then, and I had a healthy baby boy, my James, and to this day, there's still guilt about the way I felt about him prior to him arriving. I think I'll probably always have guilt about that. He's my terrorist. He is willful and stubborn and strong and just I don't know what our family would be without our little bookend. I'm very grateful that everything seemed to work the way it should have worked, and I recognized probably late in the game, but I recognized that I wasn't okay. My OB sent me to the right people. My psychiatrist saved my life or my baby's life. I don't know, but it worked. And I'm just grateful because we are a family of 7, not a family of 6, and I wouldn't have had it any other way. So postpartum struggles are real. It doesn't just have to be postpartum. It can be during, before, after. It's important to be there for your family members, your friends, the people around you who are in situations where this kind of thing is a possibility, and just be there for people. Be there for your friends and your family members, and make sure they get the help that they need. because it's real. It's a real thing. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for sharing. Until next time.